Kristin.
Hi, Senka.
I'm really happy that you're here.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So tell us something interesting about yourself, not commonly known.
So I have two things actually that I normally list when people ask me this question. So the first is I'm actually an immigrant to Canada. I'm originally from the US and I landed with my permanent residency in 2017. And I actually became a citizen in 2022. And my second fun fact is I was a full-time wedding photographer for about 8 years.
Ooh,
yeah.
Really? That's a little bit of a skip.
Well, it plays into my story. But yeah, I was a full-time wedding photographer from about 2009 to 2017.
Wow. Oh my gosh. You know, at least a photographer for weddings tends to have some pretty amazing moments. Lots of joy, lots of love, and lots of bloopers, I guess.
Tons of bloopers. Oh, yeah. I've done over 300 weddings, and some of the things that people do at weddings is great. Open bars are excellent.
I guess you're never missing content.
Exactly, yeah. The candid photography is pretty good.
Which is a great segue for Square Key Digital. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your business, what led you there?
Yeah, perfect. So Square Key is the second iteration of my digital marketing venture. So I actually started it back in 2019 under a different name. I originally launched as Urban Prairie Digital. At the time, I was living in Edmonton and I had immigrated from Chicago. So I really wanted to integrate the fact that I lived on the Canadian prairie, but was from like a large urban center in the US. And so I came up with that name. But Square Key Digital is actually the second iteration and the rebrand. And for me, Square Key Digital stems from my experience over the years in working inside of traditional marketing agencies, and also my own personal journey into getting diagnosed with ADHD as an adult and kind of going through that neurodivergence journey. And so Square Key Digital comes from that.
Wow. So you're a jack of all trades. Would you say that you're a little bit of a generalist as far as that's concerned? Or are there areas where you have more expertise or it's just more fun for you?
Yeah, that's totally fair. So with my extensive background in agencies of different sizes dealing with different clients, I would consider my skill set to be mainly generalist. I do have more experience in areas like paid media versus SEO. However, I do understand SEO basics, and I also work with contractors who, are in SEO all the time. So I do have specialists, right? So that's why Square Key is more of a collective of specialists versus like me doing everything.
So tell me, what inspired you to start your business?
So what initially inspired me to start my business, I guess, was my first experience at an agency. So when I initially immigrated, I was finding that I was spending a lot of time away from my stepkids at the time who were younger. And so, I was missing things like hockey games and, various other school things and things like that. And so I really wanted to get a job, which I hadn't had coming out of self-employment as a wedding photographer. And also, I didn't really know what I could do coming out of wedding photography, but I was like, well, I've posted on social media, so maybe I could do something there. That's literally how I got my first gig.
You realized inspiration.
I was like, I know how to post on Facebook.
But you say that, but at the same time, even today, a lot of people are not comfortable.
I know.
With posting, how to post, what to say when you're posting. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, so the landscape has changed quite a bit. So the type of content that I was posting in the US back in 2014, 15, 16 is very different than what you would post now, right? It's a lot of still images. It was a lot of, albums, tagging in clients, things like that, right? Like that's what you kind of banked on. And now it's shifted to, a lot more video forward content, things like that. And in addition, there are differences between the countries. So I didn't realize that until I actually got my first job at the small agency. And I was like, what do you mean some of these people in Saskatchewan don't have websites? It was like 2017.
Wow.
And then I learned more about the culture and I was like, oh, it makes total sense. Like there's like literally farmers that don't even have cell phone service here.
Yes, that's true. That's true. Living with farmers where I live right now, I definitely can understand that. I can see that. Also, as you say, there's cultural differences, right?
Yeah.
We just, although the United States and Canada are neighbors, there's still a lot of differences with the way that we interact with each other, you know, what we care about. And then when you go into myself being from Quebec and you look at the other provinces, again, there's a lot of cultural differences, sensitivities, and nuances. So how did you adjust to that?
Honestly, for me, one of the biggest things was just testing. And I was fortunate enough to have gotten the job at the first agency and had clients who, you know, I guess kind of like taught me trial by fire. But for me, that's when I really started realizing like the power of data and how data actually shows you what's working and what's not. And that was how I kind of started in the industry. And for me, I had those experiences at the first agency and I had this experience of being myself and my values coming through without having really, I guess, clarified them previously. I had strong feelings on things, but I didn't know why and things like that. I hadn't been through that personal process yet. I started at this small agency, then I kind of did my teaching thing, but then I realized that there were some hurdles there that I didn't have the knowledge in. So I went back into working with agencies in a different capacity to learn different skills.
Oh, okay.
And through that, I've learned, you know, various other things, whether it's leadership skills or the type of people I want to work with or the type of clients I want to work with or the technical skills of running ads on different platforms. All of those things have come through different experiences at different agencies. And for me, they've all laddered up to what Square Key has now evolved into. But I find that for me, the best approach that I've learned and taken away from being in more traditional settings, and again, having that exposure to more clients, has been the walk towards the actual issue, the actual underlying problem, right? And learning how to gracefully attempt to take that walk. I was thinking about this actually, and the answer that I came up with is a little bit out of the box. So
I like that.
For me, I consider my unique edge in my industry the fact that I genuinely want to teach my clients out of a job for myself. I want to educate my clients so well and help them bring in the exact correct people and build the correct internal teams that they don't need Square Key anymore.
I love that. I love that. I think that's where we connect. Because I think we want to teach them to fish. I think that the whole industry, or the whole, I guess, the service industry in this space has changed a lot. Years ago, the experts would try to keep you, right? And so they gave you just enough so they could get another contract, or just enough so you can do step one, and wouldn't give you the rest. And I think we have a new generation, which I'd like to say we're part of, where we really want to make our clients autonomous and brilliant. And I love that. So can you share an instance where this uniqueness made a significant difference? Because I know that when I met you, that was one of the key things that attracted me and made me think that your business was different, was exactly that transparency, the honesty, the clarity in which you speak, and also the fact that you really want your clients and or the public to learn.
I've been working with them for a little over a year, and the main piece of the puzzle that I helped them accomplish was I worked with the executive team in the company. It's an automotive group, and I helped them hire a marketing director. Prior to working with myself, they basically had mid-level content creators in each of their dealerships, and no one really helming, the marketing ship internally. And I came on board and I helped them kind of liaise with all their vendors. We went through all the vendors and we pared down what the vendors were providing, if they were even going to stay on board. Again, it comes back to, a lot of traditional agencies are like, well, if a client doesn't understand what I'm doing, I can just keep charging them and get away with everything.
I think that's awful. I think that's even unethical.
I completely agree. And that's exactly why I started Square Key.
I think it's going to speak to a lot of people because I find digital marketing is sometimes a Pandora's box to people, right? They're not sure now that when you put something up online, you can't take it down. So you don't want to make the wrong move, things like that. So I love that you're able to help organizations through that.
I was able to work with the in-store marketing contacts to really create a strategy for social media, right? They're putting out all these posts, but there's no strategy behind it because nobody is teaching them that there should be, or how to even create a strategy. So I worked one-on-one with them to kind of go through their data, figure out what posts are working, what days and times are working, you know, what are the things we can lean into and what are the things that we can pull away from.
Did you find that because it was one business, but they had different sites, they were kind of maybe working as if they were independent and not part of the whole?
Absolutely. And that's been one of the biggest things to come out of my, time with them so far, is we've brought those individual people working in the stores together. So we have these weekly meetings where we share wins and challenges and, learnings, right? Because we all have our own challenges when you're separated in different stores. But how are you getting through that challenge? Is there something you learn that can benefit somebody else, right?
Right. Absolutely.
So we've come together as a team. Yeah.
Oh, so you really set the foundation for their marketing team, essentially.
Exactly. And then on the flip side of that too, when we started to get to the point where it's like, okay, now it's time to bring in somebody full time to run this.
Right.
For me, my role came in terms of the technical questions, right? Because it's so easy for people to come in and use all the jargon, but do you have the actual technical skill set to back it up? Do you actually know how to run a Google ad? Do you actually know, how to keep up with the updates, to keep, your vendors on track, to hold them accountable?
Right. So tell me, how do your personal values, although I would say that as we're speaking, some of that is coming out on its own, but how do your personal values reflect in your business mission?
So my personal values have just become my whole life. I think as somebody who is neurodivergent, I fortunately and unfortunately sometimes don't feel like I necessarily have the ability to separate the two. I have a very strong sense of justice, which is common with people with ADHD and also autism. And so for me, I have to live in that and be comfortable with that 24/7. And so for me, my values have become my entire business. There is no separation between the values I live my private life with versus my business. For me, trust and transparency those are the two main pieces of the puzzle. So what happens a lot of time in digital marketing is that you'll have a client come and say, okay, well, I just need to sell more things. Right? I need to sell more things. I need to get more clients, et cetera, et cetera. Well, what are the other pieces of the puzzle, right? So are we looking at something that, is more mid-funnel? And if we're looking at something that's more mid-funnel, what are our KPIs? What determines success in this lens?
Right. And what's mid-funnel?
So mid-funnel is more consideration. So that's like driving traffic to your website, but not necessarily wanting the user to convert, right? We're getting that user familiar with your website. The metrics we're looking at are, how long are those people staying on the website? How many pages are they clicking through to? Are they truly engaged with your website and your brand when they do see your ad or find you online?
Okay. Gotcha.
So that's kind of a really good example to start this with, because for me as a digital marketer, if I'm looking at success of, say, 2 different creatives, right? So 2 different pictures that we run ads for, right?
Right.
One picture leads to users being on your site for 30 seconds, and the other picture leads users to being on your site for a whole minute. However, the 30-second picture has more conversions than the other picture that has the 1 minute on site, right?
Right.
Most people would say, okay, well, the 30-second picture wins. We have more conversions. However, the whole point was traffic.
Right.
So the second picture with the 1 minute on site actually is your winner, because that's achieving your main KPI.
Got it.
Yeah.
I remember I worked for a huge organization, huge global organization, and their sales cycle was 1 to 3 years. When signed, the contract could be like 10 years.
Yeah.
When you're a small, medium business, like you just can't afford that.
Exactly. Yep, 100%. And understanding too how your sales cycle is affected by economy. And economy can vary by geo, right? So just because you're selling stuff in Toronto doesn't mean your sales are going to be great in Winnipeg or Saskatoon. And just because your sales are really good in Saskatoon doesn't mean they're going to be good, in Prince Albert, because those are two different growing areas for agriculture.
Right. It's true. There's so much. I think that, I guess that's why companies need people like you.
There's a lot of nuance that people overlook.
I think people look and they read like a digital marketing book and they're like, okay, I got it.
Mm-hmm.
And they start doing it, but they don't realize the thought process, the strategy, the experience that comes with all of it. And so they just don't know what they don't know.
Yeah, I would say, honestly, the most important part about being a digital marketer is psychology.
Oh, interesting.
And like understanding how people think and operate and testing things to see what those people react to and respond to. And the landscape is always changing, right? And people are always getting older and new generations are always coming up. And so even every quarter, you're having new people into your potential buying cycle. So how do you reach those people? And what worked last year may not work this year. And what worked this year may not work in 6 months.
Very true. Who benefits the most from your work and why?
So the people that benefit the most from my work are small and mid-sized businesses. That comes out of my own personal preference. But also small and mid-sized businesses are at that stage where they're still really maximizing their team's skill sets.
I think when there's always risk in business, but the risk of making the wrong decisions, of doing the wrong things for small to mid-market businesses costs so much more.
Exactly.
It actually shut you down. So the importance of who small, medium businesses connect with or partner with, whether vendor or other business, becomes vital to their survival and their chances of success as well. It's very true.
Absolutely.
So small, medium business, are there particular industries, or are you can adapt to any industries?
Yeah, good question. I've worked with such a variety of industries over my time. I think I've actually worked with a lot of industries that are a little bit hard to work with. I have a lot of experience with like restricted verticals. So restricted verticals are people like estheticians, people like plastic surgeons, people like lawyers, people like automotive, right? Who have credit apps on their website. All of those are restricted verticals because they fall under what's called special categories on various platforms. And so you're restricted in terms of how you can target, what keywords you can use, what your website can say. There's all sorts of little nuances.
Yeah, it is highly legislated. It's true.
It's very legislated, yeah. So I have a lot of experience with those types of clients. Real estate is another one, again, like highly restricted. And then the other side of that I have experience with is with franchises. So that's working with head office, but also working with franchise owners and having those two pieces of the puzzle play nice together. Because when you're a business and a head office and you have franchise locations, everybody wants the business name, right? But you're ultimately going to bid against each other if you don't create an integrated plan. And so I do have experience working with franchises as well.
So what would you say is your proudest moment in this journey?
Oh, okay. So my proudest moment, honestly, has just been making it happen.
Yeah.
Just making it happen, because I was self-employed as a photographer, and then I had my first iteration of Square Key back in 2019. And now we're kind of on the second round in 2023, 2024. And for me, it's just been doing it. I feel like this time around, I've learned so much between 2019 and 2023 when I started Square Key. Like, I'm just approaching it totally differently. And I think for me, that's my proudest moment.
So tell me, since the year has just started, what are some of the new exciting things that we can look at as far as Square Key is concerned? And what are some of the future developments that you're working on?
Okay, so one of the big things that I had in my mind in May of 23, when I left my last traditional job and went full-time freelance, was I really wanted to hire my own team. I really want to hire my own team that is neurodivergent and similar to myself, and I feel like I naturally find those people. It just is how it works. So my goal is 3 to 5 years on starting to build out a team, and I'm actually going to be bringing on my first part-time ad buyer next week.
Hey, fantastic.
Advice to someone following a similar path or kind of already on it.
Mm-hmm.
Learn, iterate, and try again. Learn, iterate, adapt. Learn, iterate, test. All the time, every day. That's like my only approach to entrepreneurship.
I love that. I want to really thank you for taking the time to speak to me. I wish you the absolute best in 2024. I hope you have 3 more employees by the end of the year.
Oh, that's terrifying.
Maybe not at the same time. So thank you so much for your time.